Congratulations! You stumble upon this R-rated horror movie, Beezel, again when your phone battery is at 4%. While the little boy plays at home, he suddenly hears the voice of his mother, who has been missing for many years. The little boy looks shocked. He follows the sound to the kitchen. He opens a cabinet door. Inside, he discovers a small secret door. After opening it and looking inside, he is terrified. The mother's face is ashen, and her hair is disheveled. She asks her son to bring her some food. Her son takes an apple and hands it to her. The next second, something bites him forcefully. When the little boy's father, Harold Weems, returns and sees this, he is terrified. The little boy's head is separated from his body. The scene shifts, and the time jumps forward 10 years. For the past 10 years, Harold Weems, who lost his wife and son, has been suffering from public criticism. Even though he did not kill his wife and son. To clear his name, Harold Weems invites Apollo, a famous photographer from the newspaper, to his home to film a documentary to prove his wife's and son's deaths are unrelated to him. Their deaths are full of suspicious points and do not seem like the work of a normal person. It is as if some terrifying monster has been lurking in his home. After filming the introduction, Harold Weems asks Apollo to follow him to the basement to film. Harold Weems points out his wife's location at the time, stating that her death was extremely tragic. Her entire body is covered in dense bite marks. As for his son, he does not elaborate much, only stating that his death was even more tragic than his mother's. It is difficult to imagine that a human could have done this. After filming the crime scene, the two men come upstairs. The documentary is finished, and that is all the footage they have. Apollo sees that it is getting late and says he will take his leave as there is nothing else to do. However, Harold Weems wants Apollo to stay a little longer. Harold Weems wants to show him something, saying it will only take a moment and he can leave afterward. Harold Weems goes to retrieve it. Since Apollo is idle, he reviews the video he shot. What he sees shocks him. He realizes that in the basement, they were not alone. Something else was standing in the shadows. Apollo zooms in on the frame, increases the brightness, and is immediately terrified. He wonders if it is a tall, terrifying figure or something else entirely. As he ponders, Harold Weems calls out to him. Harold Weems announces that he has found it and tells Apollo to come over. It is a videotape. Harold Weems states that the police have never seen this videotape, and showing it to Apollo demonstrates his immense trust. As he speaks, he begins to play the tape. The woman who appears on screen is Harold Weems's wife, and Apollo immediately recognizes her. He films the process of his wife's death. Apollo asks why he films this. Harold Weems says a strange thing. He finds Beezel's feeding method very interesting. Realizing something is wrong, Apollo wants to run. But alas, it is too late. Harold Weems has already drugged the water Apollo drinks. Now the drug takes effect. Apollo becomes disoriented and finally collapses unconscious. When he wakes up again, he is already tied to a chair. At this moment, another woman appears. It is Harold Weems' current wife, Dolores Weems. Meanwhile, Harold Weems explains the whole story. It turns out Harold Weems has been keeping a Beezel in the basement. This Beezel feeds exclusively on the flesh and souls of living people. When Harold Weems keeps Beezel, his wife and son strongly object. Harold Weems, already somewhat superstitious, hears that sacrificing to Beezel grants immortality. In his madness, he directly offers his objecting wife and son as sacrifices. He sacrifices them as offerings. He even personally films Beezel's entire feeding process. Then he meets Dolores Weems. These two are birds of a feather, colluding in evil, and both desire eternal life. In short, both are quite deranged. Now they are about to sacrifice Apollo to Beezel. While they speak, Apollo slowly begins to undo his restraints. Finally, seizing the opportunity, he plunges a knife directly into Harold Weems' vital spot, killing him. Apollo is quite reckless. He should pull out the knife, but he forgets his legs are still restrained. Meanwhile, Beezel slowly emerges. Apollo is terrified. He is like a lamb to the slaughter. In an instant, Apollo meets a brutal end at the hands of the entity. The scene shifts, and another 10 years pass. Late at night, a nurse pushes open the door and enters Harold Weems's house. Her name is Nurse. She is specifically here to care for the seriously ill Dolores Weems. But even now, Dolores Weems still deeply believes in that superstition. Despite her grave illness, she remains fixated on sacrificing to Beezel, clinging to the absurd notion that it grants immortality. She even constantly asks her son to find nurses to care for her. The narrator does not elaborate on her motives. The thoughtful nurse simply prepares dinner for Dolores Weems. However, Dolores Weems cannot eat. This shows how weak her body is. Moreover, she cannot speak. So Nurse decides to stay with Dolores Weems tonight without sleeping. She tells Dolores to call her if she needs anything. However, just as Nurse carries the dinner out, suddenly a sound comes from the basement. Nurse timidly goes downstairs with a flashlight. She looks around inside. There is nothing there. So she goes back upstairs. When she enters the room and looks, she is terrified. Dolores Weems is talking to herself. She says a bunch of strange things. Nurse does not take it seriously. She assumes Dolores Weems might be a bit mentally unstable or suffering from dementia. She decides not to say anything else and just keeps watch. What was said earlier was very good, but as soon as she sits down, Nurse falls asleep shortly after. She also has a nightmare, which wakes her up in fright. Dolores Weems suddenly appears right in front of Nurse's face. This frightens Nurse so much that she decides to listen to some music to calm down. Then, as she listens, strange sounds come from inside. The other party greets Nurse. At the same time, the lights in the yard suddenly flicker. Nurse looks outside. Through the second window, she sees someone standing at the window of the house across the street. Then the light goes out, comes back on, and the person is gone. Then it goes out again and comes back on. Oh my God. This scares Nurse, who wonders what kind of haunted place this is and decides to leave. But just as she steps out, Nurse turns back. She cannot leave because the client has already paid, and she needs to do her job properly. If she leaves halfway, all her previous efforts will be in vain. As long as this house does not take her life, she can stay. Just as Nurse enters the door, she hears sounds coming from the basement again. This time, someone says they need help. Nurse still holds a flashlight and timidly goes downstairs. This time, Nurse decides to investigate thoroughly, to see what exactly is inside the basement. As she walks further inside and looks, she is terrified. Many work badges of caretakers hang inside. At the same time, a figure suddenly flashes behind Nurse. Nurse is a little scared and plans to leave, but she discovers a small door next to the stairs. Curiosity kills the cat. She still does not leave. She even wants to look inside. As she looks inside, she is terrified. A woman lies inside. Upon closer inspection, it is her colleague. Nurse looks up again and is terrified. Beezel appears. At the same time, Dolores Weems also approaches. She directly closes the door. Then screams echo from the basement. The scene shifts, and another 10 years pass. Dolores Weems' son, Lucas Weems, arrives with. Lucas Weems moves in with his girlfriend Nova. In fact, Lucas Weems does not want to move in. He knows many people have died in this house and something is wrong. But his girlfriend Nova is very curious. She likes to live in a house that feels lively at night, finding it very exciting. She wants to have a child with her husband. A family of 3 would be perfectly happy. Of course, these are just playful thoughts. In reality, she is simply very curious. She just wants to seek thrills. Plus, there is an inheritance. It would be a waste not to inherit it. Moreover, this place is far from the city's hustle and bustle. Nova records every detail of their life with her camera. Initially, the two live a normal life. But strange things begin to happen gradually this night. Nova is lying in bed. Lucas Weems is reading next to her. Suddenly, the light goes out. Lucas Weems disappears. Nova is bewildered. Immediately after, sounds come from under the bed again. Nova is a bit scared and dares not look down. So she takes her camera and films downwards. Then she looks at the lens herself. Unfortunately, her eyesight is a bit poor and she cannot see clearly. So she has to get out of bed and look. When she looks, she is terrified because someone is standing there. When she looks up again, the person is gone. Fortunately, it is just a nightmare. When morning arrives, Nova is woken up by cries. Nova follows the sound to the basement. She opens the secret door next to the stairs. She sees a baby abandoned here. Lucas Weems just returns after buying food. Seeing the basement door open, he walks in. He sees Nova holding a rotten animal corpse. Lucas Weems, without a word, immediately throws the corpse away. They cannot stay in this house. He must quickly take his girlfriend and leave. But Nova begs him. Nova begs him to stay just one more night tonight, and they can leave tomorrow. Facing Nova's plea, Lucas Weems reluctantly agrees to stay for one last night. Little does he know, this night truly becomes their last. When morning arrives, Lucas Weems wakes up to find the camera pointed at him. He feels confused and turns to ask Nova what she is doing. Nova, holding a knife, directly stabs him, leading to a devastating tragedy. An unknown number of days pass. Nova becomes pregnant, likely with Beezel's child. Her killing of Lucas Weems was likely due to Beezel's control. After giving birth to Beezel's child, Nova also perishes. Subsequently, anyone looking to inherit the property cheaply, seeking a place to settle down, skeptical adventurers or even ordinary people simply without a home, might move in. This allows the killings to continue indefinitely in the old house, forming an eternal cycle of lure, possession, sacrifice, and rebirth, followed by more luring. Unless one blows up the house with C4. Of course, that is also a bit absurd. The movie is quite creative, featuring 3 interconnected stories and progressive horror, finally using a cyclical ending to close the loop. Alright,